Oh, sorry about that. Had a little interruption from my little one, so this is important, and so this is going to be part two of my story. So, I wouldn't say it would be characterized as anorexic anymore in college. I was certainly on a 24/7, 7 days a week destructive path of restricting, like dieting, restricting, all kinds of weird plans I'd make for myself. Pretty typical chronic dieter kind of thing. Restricting, deprivation-driven eating, binging, and overexercise. And that lasted for 4.5, 5 years. I look back at that time of how much I was trying to escape, like not only not fully dealing with everything in my past. It had only been like a year since I started recovery. Now I'm in a new situation, which was traumatic, let alone dangerous. And I was always literally running, to just have a break from the feelings. And really, it wasn't even a break from the feelings. It was just not even feeling the feelings. I didn't know how to do it. And that's something that makes sense given, again, when I was growing up, I didn't mention this in the first video, but we really weren't encouraged to feel feelings. Joyfulness, good, just don't be too much about it. Sadness, that's okay. There's reason to get sad, but not for too long. Anger, no, we don't do anger. So of course, here I am in this really difficult situation. And one, I didn't have the trust or love of myself to be able to like say no and get out as quickly as I got in, and then to stay that long, and I would have to repress all those they're not negative emotions. They're not negative, but definitely messengers of like, this isn't okay. You're not safe. And I stayed a long time, and it showed through my food. I was just out of control. And isolated. I isolated from my family. I didn't really have any friends till the last year when I started to wake up a little bit. I actually became friends with two people in particular, which one is still one of my closest female friends to this day. Of course, she had similar experiences, so there's a level of I don't think she knew at the time, and I didn't know at the time, but we could see each other's stuff. And definitely we were always healthfully encouraging to each other to be kinder to ourselves. And so we needed that mirror, which was great. So by the last year of college, and by the way, it took me 5 years because of all this drama of, in and out of issues with the boyfriend, and him definitely holding me back from progressing in my life with school, with my recovery, everything. He definitely encouraged a lot of my self-hatred, which is what narcissists and sociopaths do. I don't like to throw those words around that mildly, but for sure, there's no doubt. And so that was his goal, was to keep me down and keep me present as a hook in, to him and his issues. So anyway, by the end of that year, I started to recognize, I didn't finally recognize it after all this time, that this isn't healthy, and that I am very unhappy, and that there's a little sliver of me starting to feel like I deserve more. And because I didn't isolate myself as much, I had a couple friends at this point that I let myself just be around, let alone just hole up in my house all the time and just work and study and work out and restrict and binge. So I started basically getting a life and taking some risks to let people in, and things took a big step forward really quickly. I share all this because this is what we all have to do, is reach out and be vulnerable and take risk and face the fear of being imperfect and looking stupid and looking weak or vulnerable or whatever it is that we're fearful of in the stories we have. By the end of before I graduated, literally I broke up with him, I think, like the next week. And he didn't even know it. He was gone so much. He didn't know I was gone. And so it took a while to get fully out of that space. In the meantime, I didn't mention this, but one of the saving graces, in my life was actually meeting my husband. And at that point, he was a friend associate, and we spent a lot of time just talking. And he was one of the ways in which I started to question, I couldn't believe, why is this person talking to me? Why is this person being nice to me? I'm I'm so not cool. I'm not likable. Because I'm too weird. I'm too sensitive. I've got these eating things that I have to hide. And he just found me interesting and liked who I was as a person. And it's not that we want like something from outside of us to like start to crack the bubble, but that's what it, I guess, took for me. And if it takes that for you, that's fine. Recognizing that, we don't want to become codependent on that. And, there are ways that it happened in that relationship with my husband that, we had to work on long ago, to become like separately equally strong to bring the best out in each other. So that's still a work in progress as well. But anyway, ended up meeting him, and just from that that unconditional acceptance of me, that I started to like break free. I felt like if that was possible for him to do that to me, maybe I can do that for myself, and that's what started to accelerate my recovery again. And the first step was like I really started on the truly this was like 22, 23, and got really serious about intuitive eating. And I don't know how I found the book. It's one of those things I still don't have the memory of like how that book came in my world, but it did. And things started to get really better and fast from there. And so, intuitive eating, and just kept finding other books that were really powerful. Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, and Intuitive Eating, and other kinds of other kind of books. Reread Janine Roth books. Really started challenging my ideas around movement, and so that was like a whole year of that. And then after that, I got married, and it was one of the most powerful experiences of my life to like not go on a diet or restrict or over exercise before I got married. I had definitely dipped my toes in it for sure, and I recognized like I'm getting ready to go into like a new phase of my life. Why am I bringing this in? So I weighed the most I ever weighed when I got married, which is interesting, and I didn't try to change it or fix it. And I remember feeling some discomfort about it and shame, but I just had so much knowing of like what I was doing was right in terms of this phase of my life, that it didn't matter so much, which was amazing. So then I began, I had finished my undergrad nutrition as a dietech student, and by the time I graduated by then, there's more stories about that I have, but I'll share those another time. Basically, by the time I graduated, I recognized, and before I did my internship, I recognized I'm going to either have to figure out a way to teach what I'm learning about what's healing me, in intuitive eating, joyful movement. I didn't have the name for it at the time, health at every size, but that's what it was, of like accepting that this is the body I have, and being healthy because I chose to, want to like feel as good as I could in the body I had, and that's health at every size. And I had the choice to pursue that I didn't have to change my weight to make that happen. My body might change because of those behaviors and mindset about being kind to myself, but that wasn't the goal. So anyway, I go into my internship thinking, okay, I got to get through this. In most scenarios, I'm taught to like teach that weight loss is going to fix their health problems, and teach that like food restriction is going to fix their problems. And I recognize going into every single little training, nutrition counseling I ever had to do, that like, then this isn't going to work. So many times I'd spend just talking and getting known to people, and then kind of slide in, here's your food restrictions, have a nice day. Still feeling terrible about doing it, but that's what I was trained to do. And so then I got licensed, became a dietitian, started my first job. It was a position where there wasn't any room really for, I had lots of time to do nutrition counseling, but the food restrictions had to be a little bit stringent because this was life or death, so I got it. But how could I make them feel like this wasn't a prison, but it was about self-care? And so I dabbled and played with that for a couple years until I recognized I can't do anything else but teach people how to be free from food and weight issues. And so my mentor and I found each other. This is when I lived in Gainesville, Florida, and I worked and trained with her for very, very intensely for 3 years. And worked with her for 9, and And it really helps, at the time, you think when you're doing that work that you're still looking out for your little shadows of things. So you find little pockets of things where you're not totally free. And that certainly happened over the first 3 to 4 years of little places I still need to work on. Little bits of body image and not so much freedom with food, but definitely body image and exercise, which I did. And those, by the way, usually are, for a lot of people, more difficult, at least as difficult, if not more difficult, the body image issues. Because again, we're so programmed to believe that the thin ideal and young and thin and even like whiter the preferred and right body types. And I had to recognize how much prejudice and bigotry was programmed into all that, and recognize that no, there's a reason. If you look out in nature, Mother Nature, there's all kinds of trees, all kinds of animals of the same species, yet they look different. So why can't that be the same for people? And so that made every bit of sense to me, and felt so right and loving and so at home in me that I recognize that there's others that want and need that message and are ready for that too. And so that's what I've been doing ever since now for 10 years of teaching that self-love with your body is possible, freedom with your food is possible, having a relaxed, ever-changing relationship with exercise is possible. And so I'll say a couple things about all that, is that inherently there's nothing wrong with moving your body, whether you love to go to the gym, do yoga, rock climb, and pushing yourself doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's always about the motive. What is your motive to be doing these things? This is about repressing or trying to change your body. You're escaping and you're abandoning your emotions. And those, at this point, in wanting to restrict or deprive yourself or over-exercise or not exercise when your body's feeling the need to do that, it's a bypass. And not to say that, and it's always said very lovingly and gently because I did it all, I know. But it's a way that we're trying to control and repress the emotions that feel overwhelming. So what I'm trying to say is there is hope, and that even as you get really free, and you can, I'm not doing these videos for my benefit, I'm doing it for you to recognize that there is hope, but it's being willing to show up and do the work with yourself every day. It's not that it has to be serious. Part of my recovery, and to this very moment, is still around clearing those pockets of where I didn't know how to let myself be loving to myself, be playful, be joyful, and there's a lot of inner child work to be done around that, and I still do that work. And at this point, I recognize that some of the things sound like really doable, and you might really want that, or you're curious. But I do know that because so many of us have had overwhelmed nervous systems, that's something else I devote a lot of my work and time to, is helping people thaw out just these overactive or shut down nervous systems, to where it's like you want to feel but you can't even feel, or you feel like that you're always feeling and running in adrenaline and fight or flight mode. And it feels like you can't slow down. And that was me my whole life. So you can also learn how to like slow yourself down and thaw yourself out with, I use a lot of practice like training, and I've had a lot of training around things like practices like Hakomi, and working through some somatic trainings that help us learn to rewire and soothe our nervous systems to where we have emotional resilience. We can feel things. We can have a feeling that doesn't evoke a memory that evokes like a terrorizing situation. And so we can be 30 years old or 40 years old or 20 years old and just feel a feeling. And it doesn't have to feel like that something bad's happening. Because what happens when we have these nervous systems that have been so overwhelmed, it feels like what bad happened in the past is happening right now, and we have to remember that these aren't those times. It doesn't matter, what happened yesterday or 20 years ago. That's not these times, but it can feel like that in your body. So we have to recognize that we have to do work around your mind. Your mind may know better, but your body doesn't yet, and so that's a really huge part of, I think, recovering from diet and body image issues, or even more severe restricting, binging, purging, other kinds of self-harm behaviors, is that it doesn't feel like that we're safe now. And so that's why getting the right support and devoting your time to pursuing that is worth it. So you can have more freedom. And that's what I'm talking about here, is freedom from all the ways in which the world tries to tell you that, either in a really overt, shadowy ways of that you're not good enough, or even a little bit bypassy ways of all love and light, which that's good, but I think we still have to feel the feelings. You can't bypass feeling your shame with messages of love and light when you're actually not feeling anything, but like trying to make yourself feel like everything's okay. So you have to do the work, and to be in love with yourself and be in love with life, and know that you can have hope and have faith that things can be good. I'll leave it at that today. I feel like I've talked a lot. I could talk a lot more. So, right now, as I'm doing this video, I'm in the midst of getting ready to share that I'm going to do a membership program. It's 6 months that provides all the little aspects of what I talked about in these 2 videos in these 6 months. So I wanted the program to be long enough to where you have a lot of time to integrate things and start to learn a different way and have support to do that. And I also wanted it to be, I know for a lot of people, like, I don't pursue treatment long enough because of cost. So I'm making this to where you have access to me, but I think it's still accessible to everybody, and that was the point of this. Something I haven't shared, that I lived in an area of 1,000 people. So the fact that I actually had a dietitian, she lived in the next town over, which was a bigger town with 30,000. So I lived in the Midwest, to where there's not a whole lot of really, really big cities. And so the biggest town close to me was 30,000, which is a half-hour away. The next biggest town was 2 hours away. Not town, but like a city of some millions of people, was 2 hours away. So resources were really sparse, and that's the case for so many of us. Or you're in a place where you've tried some other people, either there wasn't readiness for the message yet, or wasn't the right fit. So I created this program for us to have like a place of, even if you're not feeling ready to talk to face to somebody individually, even if you have the resources for it, but you need something to feel safe in doing first, that you have, or that you're ready for the next step, or your resources are limited financially and you can swing this. This is the amount of money this is of the exchange is something that most people pay for in coffees each month. So there'll be more about that in the coming weeks. So I will, but definitely, at least, like, you can get, you won't miss out on the updates about it if you actually are signed up for my newsletter series. So it's tracybrownrd.com, and you can / free gifts. So it's under like the gifts on my website. There's a sign up page for it. So that gets you access to my blog every week, or access to the videos that I put out most weeks, other resources from other people, and if I'm doing a new offering. So that's all available to you. So there's other options besides one-on-one guidance around your food, body image, movement, nervous system health, self-compassion, self-love, self-care, all the things that I delve into with people. So I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for making this far in this video, and hopefully you've watched video 1 as well. Until then, take care, and peaceful eating. Bye.